our time on freedom. My name is Mikhail Bernov. Hello. As a result of a Russian Lancet drone strike on a civilian car in Kramatorsk, Freedom TV journalist Aliona Hramova and cameraman Yevhenii Karmazin were killed. Another one of our colleagues, Alexander Kolichev, suffered a blast injury, shrapnel wounds, and an open fracture. He is currently in the hospital. At the time of the attack, the film crew was at a gas station where they had come to document the aftermath of a recent shelling by the Russian army. The editor-in-chief of Freedom TV, Yegor Skorina, said that Aliona and Yevhenii worked in the hottest spots in Donbass and covered this war.
This news has been a terrible blow to our editorial team. Everyone who worked with Aliona and Yevhenii will tell you that they were not only true professionals, but also people with whom it was extremely comfortable to work. They always wanted to be the first, and always wanted to show the real truth about the crimes of the Russian Federation. And they always wanted the world not to remain silent in response. As for Aliona, I want to say separately that I personally sent her on live broadcasts more than once, and my colleagues will understand what I mean. There's this situation when you talk to a journalist before a live segment, and you see what kind of person they are on camera and what kind of person they are off camera. On camera, Aliona was always precise and structured, while off camera she was always cheerful, bright, and smiling. And I am sure that's how she will always remain. In our memory.
The attack on the Freedom Film crew was commented on by Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy. According to him, this is deliberate terror. The Ukrainian leader noted that this is not an accident or a mistake, but a Kremlin strategy aimed at silencing all independent voices that tell the world about Russia's war crimes. President Zelenskyy also spoke about the daily Russian terror at the Council of Europe summit, recalling yesterday's strike on a kindergarten in Kharkiv.
Yesterday in Kharkiv, Russian UVs struck a kindergarten. This was not a mistake or an accident. Several drones deliberately targeted this place. Fortunately, the children were saved. And the day before in Sumy, Shahid drones struck a street. People were killed and injured right in their cars. Today in Donetsk region, a Russian drone struck journalists. The Russians deliberately attacked a civilian vehicle. Yes, 2 journalists were killed. And almost every day, energy facilities in the north of Chernihiv region come under attack. And every day we live in a cycle. Russia doesn't destroy, we rebuild.
Russia is deliberately hunting journalists who are doing their duty. This was stated in a comment to Freedom TV channel by Ukrainian MP Yevhenii Karmazin. She emphasized that the main task now is to show the international community that the Russian Federation is not just committing war crimes, including against journalists, but is doing so deliberately.
At the beginning of October, PACE adopted a resolution specifically on crimes against the media, calling on Russia to release all captive journalists, and also recorded more than 800 crimes against Ukrainian media workers committed since the start of Russia's full-scale invasion. This resolution did not record the deaths of the Freedom journalists, nor the death of the French journalist who was also recently deliberately killed by a Russian drone. What are we additionally going to initiate now from a political standpoint? We have already reached out through the relevant committee to UNESCO, because UNESCO documents the killing of journalists, especially while they are carrying out their professional duties. We need to see a response from the international community. And right now, there is also a discussion with colleagues about creating a special investigative commission in the Verkhovna Rada, which would specifically investigate and examine war crimes against the media and Ukrainian journalists.
In the Kharkiv region, a rescuer was killed as a result of a Russian strike. 5 of his colleagues were wounded. This happened in the Kupiansk district, when firefighters were putting out a fire at the site where a drone had struck. At that moment, the Russians launched a second attack. The rescuer was 50 years old, and he is survived by a daughter. 2 people were injured after a nighttime Russian attack on a railway station in the Sumy region. Both of the injured are employees of Ukrzaliznytsia. According to the Sumy Regional Military Administration, one of the wounded was hospitalized, while the other received medical assistance at the scene. The number of injured has risen to 9 as a result of the nighttime attack on Kyiv. Let me remind you, the night before, late in the evening, the Russian Federation struck the city with ballistic drones. Civilian and residential infrastructure has been destroyed in several districts of the capital. For example, in Obolonsky, a drone hit a 5-story building, and another one struck a 21-story building in Desnyansky. The most destruction occurred in the Podilskyi district. There, educational institutions, a synagogue, a museum, and office buildings were damaged. Residential blocks, the windows and doors of the synagogue were blown out, and the stained glass windows, which were a quarter of a century old, were also destroyed. It is known that at the moment of the strike, the security guard was near the building and was thrown back by the blast wave.
I was just about to leave. Usually I come here at night to the shelter. And I had just gotten dressed and was about to go out when I heard a shahid flying right outside my window. Very low, just right there. And I live on the second to last floor. In about a minute, I think, no more, there was a wild crash, an explosion. The whole building started shaking. And 5 minutes later, I came here. Of course, I didn't think it had hit here. I thought it would all be a little farther away.
In total, on Thursday night, Russia launched 130 drones over Ukrainian territory. About 80 of them were shahids. This was reported by the Ukrainian Air Force. They also noted that the defenders of Ukraine's skies neutralized 92 Russian drones in the north and east of the country. Debris from downed drones fell in 11 locations. It was also an uneasy night in Russia. Drones attacked the Ryazan oil refinery. The facility is part of Rosneft. A fire broke out in one of the refinery's units, according to local social media. The regional governor confirmed the strike. Access to the plant has been blocked. In recent years, I should also note, the plant processed about 12 million tons of oil. It had previously come under attack and, at the time of today's shelling, was operating at half capacity. Ukrainian Defense Forces eliminated 920 Russian occupiers over the past day. Thus, according to the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, the total losses of the Russian army since the start of the full-scale invasion have exceeded 1,134,000 soldiers. In addition, the day before, 2 Russian tanks and 6 armored combat vehicles were destroyed, 24 artillery systems were burned, an MLRS and 1 air defense system were blown up. 126 combat engagements were recorded over the past day along the entire front line. According to the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, Ukrainian troops repelled a Russian attack near Malinovka in the Heliopol direction. 2 more enemy assaults were repelled in the Orikis sector of the front, 3 in the Pridniprovsk sector, and 4 each in the Lyman, Kupiansk, as well as in the North Slobozinsky and Kursk sectors. In addition, the invaders made 8 unsuccessful attempts each in the southern Slobozinsky and Sloviansk directions, 11 in the Koshchuntivka sector, and 20 in the Oleksandrivka sector. The situation remains difficult at the Pokrovsk bridgehead. There, Ukrainian troops repelled 50 Russian attacks.
It's a tough situation. This is acknowledged by all military observers and analysts who are closely following developments around Pokrovsk and Myrnograd. Nevertheless, fierce fighting has been going on in this section of the front for over a year now. They are drawing a huge number of Russian forces and resources to themselves. Yes, enemy sabotage and reconnaissance groups are being detected more and more often right inside the settlement itself. Well, accordingly, in turn, the Ukrainian defense forces are at work, conducting search and raid operations to locate and eliminate these Russian assault troops.
In the past few days, 8 people have been detained in Poland on suspicion of preparing sabotage, wrote Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk on the social network X. Authorities in Warsaw claim that the scale of Russian intelligence operations in Poland has reached unprecedented levels. Audrey Matrenko will tell you more about this.
Over the past few months, 55 people acting in the interests of Russian intelligence have been detained in Poland, according to the Intelligence Services Administration. One of the latest cases reported by the prosecutor's office involves an agent of the Russian Special Services whose task was to send explosives to EU countries by mail. Polish Special Services detained him, and 2 more accomplices were arrested in Romania.
These shipments were intended to self-ignite or explode during transportation. The goal of these planned actions was to intimidate the population and destabilize the countries of the European Union that support Ukraine, according to a publication by the National Prosecutor's Office of the Republic of Poland.
The activities of Russian Special Services in Poland have reached unprecedented proportions, reports Jacek Dobrzyński, the spokesperson for the Special Services Coordinator. According to him, all their actions fit into the overall strategy of undermining European unity. Since Poland stands guard over the eastern flank of the EU and NATO, it needs to be the most united and prepared for Russian threats.
They are trying to divide people, to pit them against each other. Poles against Poles, Poles against Ukrainians, Poles against Germans, and against other Europeans. Poland has always been an attractive target for Russians who sought to conduct intelligence operations here, to place their spies here, to gather certain information, especially after the transformation of our country when we joined NATO and the European Union.
The current tactic of the Russian Special Services is to recruit so-called disposable spies. These are ordinary citizens who are contacted through social networks and, as a rule, are sent on a single mission, after which all contact is cut off. A sprawling network of disposable spies makes it much harder to fight sabotage.
This report break time equals 0.5s/. Analysts are professionals who use their expertise to examine data and provide valuable insights that help organizations make better decisions. It's quite easy and practically without any restrictions.
The threat of Russian hybrid attacks and sabotage has forced Romania to reconsider how it protects its own citizens. Bucharest is finalizing the development of an updated national defense strategy for 2026 through 2030, which will be reviewed by the Supreme National Defense Council and Parliament by November 26.
Unlike the 2020 to 2024 strategy, which primarily focused on the integration with NATO standards and the comprehensive modernization of the military, the new version now specifically identifies Russia as the main source of hybrid threats. Break time equals 0.5s/. Key priorities include adapting the defense sector to challenges in the Black Sea region, deepening cooperation with the NATO and the EU, as well as strengthening capabilities in cyber defense and countering disinformation. The Supreme National Defense Council plans to create a coordination structure and operational interagency groups for rapid response to hybrid attacks. From a publication on the website of the Foreign Intelligence Service of Ukraine,
Diplomatic corps could become cells of Russian intelligence services, according to officials in Prague. The Czech Republic wants to establish rules requiring diplomats from the aggressor country to coordinate their foreign trips with EU member states. Prague is proposing to include these measures in a future sanctions package against Russia.
There's no reason why a Russian diplomat accredited in Spain should be able to come to Prague whenever they want. We must apply strict reciprocity in issuing short-term diplomatic visas in accordance with the Vienna Convention. Jan Lipavsky, Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Czech Republic, in a comment to the Financial Times.
The Kremlin uses an extensive network of spies to gather information about military sites within the European Union. Unknown drones, which are being spotted more and more often in the airspace of NATO member countries, can carry out similar tasks. This is according to the intelligence services of European countries. According to Andris Kubilius, the European Commissioner for Defense and Space, the Russian Federation could launch military aggression against the European Union by 2030. Andriy Dmitrenko for Freedom TV channel.
The EU has adopted its 19th package of sanctions against Russia. The new restrictions target 5 Russian banks, as well as 4 financial institutions from Belarus and Kazakhstan. The sanctions also affect ships belonging to Russia's shadow fleet. 45 organizations have been added to the list for circumventing existing restrictions, including 17 from India and China, as well as from Thailand. As the head of European diplomacy, Akalas, stated, it is becoming increasingly difficult for Putin to finance this war. The United States has also imposed sanctions against Russia. Now, Russian oil giants Rosneft and Lukoil are under restrictions. The new sanctions will make Putin act more reasonably and help bring an end to the war against Ukraine. This was stated by White House head Donald Trump during a meeting with NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte. This decision has been a long time coming, emphasized the American president.
Believe me, these are massive sanctions. They are very serious. They are aimed at 2 of their major oil companies. And we hope that these restrictions won't last long. We hope the war will be stopped. We are considering supplying various types of missiles to Ukraine, but I think they won't be needed. We just want the Russians to turn around and go home.
Subscribe to The Gaze and stay updated on the most important events, top news from Ukraine and all over the world, in-depth analysis, exclusive reports and interviews, all on hand in our channel. Join our community of viewers and stay tuned.